about. If you want to be a skeptic, there's plenty to be skeptical about. If you want to be a pessimist, there's plenty to be pessimistic about. What you look for, you will find. But in Psalm 14, it says, a fool says in their heart, there is no God. Now this is fascinating because you and I would say somebody who rejects the divine, we would say, well, this is somebody who's made an intellectual decision. They've looked at the columns, they've weighed the evidence, and they've said there is no God. But the psalm says no. Somebody who rejects God, who says there is no God, this is somebody who's made a decision in their heart. The psalmist says that is not ultimately an intellectual decision, a cognitive ruling that person has made. It's a posture of the heart. You can look at this big, mysterious world that God has made. You can look at light and how it does all sorts of strange things. It bends and it distorts. You can look at how the universe is not static, how there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these dials that are all perfectly calibrated to let this little blue and green ball produce human life and sustain human life. You can look at the universe in its smallness with all of the quarks. You can look at all of these odd little things that are indeterminate, that have essentially a personality of their own. String theorists are now saying that they believe that they can prove at least 11 dimensions to reality. They're now saying, I heard the other day, they're now saying they think they have a 12th and a 13th, but string theorists are saying there are at least 11 dimensions to reality. We can look at that and say, wow, even scientists are saying there must be more. Nah, it's all probably, they'll just end up with it, or someone like Bill Gates will figure it all out and we'll be all set from there. And you can look at all of this and say, there's nothing more going on here. Yeah, spirit, breath, that's all just made up by religious people as a crutch to deal with the pain of life. You can look at all of this and say, there's nothing more, there's nothing else going on. It just is a bunch of stuff. Or you can choose to see wonder and beauty and awe. You can see the quarks, and you can see the dimensions, and you can see light, and you can see photons, and you can see the stars, and you can see the dials, and you can choose to say, whoa, wow, unbelievable, amazing. You can choose with the posture of your heart to worship, to be filled with wonder and awe, to believe that not only are we here for a reason, but there is a big story being told, and you and I each get to be a part of it. What you look for, you will find. A friend of mine was in Malawi, West Africa, and there had been a terrible famine there, and the people hadn't eaten, and he had been working with several other agencies to arrange for food to be brought in. So they had this giant celebration when food was brought, and people who hadn't eaten in a while got to eat for the first time. And my friend said, if you want to see a celebration, see people at the end of a famine eat. He said it was unbelievable. Singing, dancing, just living in the moment of we can now eat. And he says they set up this tent awning out in the middle of this field. And he says partway through the celebration, he says they hear this unbelievably loud like whirling noise, and they step out of the awning and they look to the side, and there, headed towards the clearing, was a tornado. So he says we all stood and just watched the tornado come towards us, like you do. He says the tornado comes to the edge of the clearing, stops, goes around the perimeter of the clearing, and then keeps on going in the direction it was originally headed in. He says they're standing there watching it when one of the locals runs up to them and says, do you see? The celebration here is so magnificent, even the spirits have come to witness it. What you look for, you will find. And what we are looking for, and what you are looking for, and I'm looking for, is right here. It's not over the mountain, and it's not across the sea. What we're looking for is right here. The reality that Jesus came to announce, to die for, and to rise for, he called the kingdom of God. We might say the reality of God or the way of God. This reality, Jesus said, is here. It's now. It's among us. It's upon us. Jesus never taught that it's somewhere else. He said things like, look at those flowers. Have you watched the birds in a while? Notice in your conversations with the least of these, you might even find God there. He came essentially to articulate for us an integrated, holistic spirituality, that everything we are looking for is not over there, it's not behind there, it's not down there, it's right here. The issue is if our eyes are open to see it. May you slow down so that you don't miss a thing. May the eyes of your heart be enlightened. May you be fully present right here, right now. May you come to see that the reality of God is at hand, among us, upon us, near, here. And may you come to see that everything is spiritual. Thanks.